There we go. Look at that little handsome devil. So, let me start off with telling you guys a little story. First of all, there was a good-looking young whippersnapper by the name of Brandon, and he had dreams of being a professional basketball player. He grew up in Chicago and actually was a huge Michael Jordan Bulls fan. Growing up in the 90s, it's hard not to be a big Bulls fan, especially when you live in Chicago. So he quickly realized that that dream wasn't going to become a fruition just because he wasn't that good at basketball. So he decided that there was other opportunities in this world. But in his adventures, oh, there it is. In his adventures, he happened to convince, and I have to say it's been so far his most accomplished feat in his life, is that he met a very beautiful young woman in Chicago and convinced her to marry him. And so they decided to have a young family. I'm going to have to stand over here the whole time. A young family. And in good nature, he raised those little kids to be Chicago sports fans as well. Oh, perfect. And the family continued to grow. And so later on, they got married and decided that warm weather, this was actually the moment where I decided that we were going to move to, and Brandon being me, we decided we were going to move to warmer weather. And so, and one of those reasons was mostly because my wife is actually from Miami originally. So she braved 9 cold winters in Chicago. And finally, when I came to the realization, we were in Roatan, Honduras on a family vacation. And my daughter, who was about 3.5, 4 at the time, said, "Daddy, I don't want to go home. There's a winter storm. I want to wear sandals." I said, "Well, I'm working here. This is pretty much dial-up internet. I could work anywhere." And so we decided to look into going and moving somewhere warm. That's when we decided we were going to move down to Austin. I was about to say Houston, but it's not Houston. It was Austin. I live in Austin now. We moved down to Austin, and actually, personally, what brought me and wanting to move was the biggest thing was that I read a lot of books. Everyone here run their own business? Yeah? So I'm sure you hear this more than once, or you've heard this a million times, that the best way to grow, both personally and professionally, is to what? Remove yourself from your comfort zone. And so I thought, what better way than to remove myself from my comfort zone, which was my network that I spent 10 years growing, where my family and friends live in Chicago, and completely remove myself and take myself to a completely foreign place that we literally only knew 2 people, and move my family down there and start our lives down here, in Austin. So we did. And my wife was, not only did we do that and remove ourselves from there, but my wife was about 4 months pregnant when we moved down here. So we ended up having our daughter, my one, if you don't mind hitting the slide. She's not in that picture yet, but we had her down here in Austin. And when we moved down here in August, this was literally like a rebirth. I started all over again, and this was the first day of the rest of my life. And so it was a fantastic. If you don't mind hitting the slide. She's not in that picture yet, but we had her down here in Austin. And when we moved down here in August, this was literally like a rebirth. I started all over again, and this was the first day of the rest of my life. And so it was a fantastic opportunity, and things have been up and down, as they always are. When you do things for the first time, you remove yourself from your comfort zone. If you don't mind hitting the next slide. But now you see my beautiful family. We're all healthy, happy. My kids thoroughly enjoy the warm weather. My wife couldn't be happier either. And so everyone is extremely happy, and business is going very well too. So I moved down here when I was about a year into starting my agency called the Lewin Media. If you don't mind hitting the next slide. And we have a great opportunity to help tons of business owners. We specialize in the real estate industry. We niche in the real estate industry, but we also actually happen to help other people in other businesses too. but that's our strict focus. So if you don't want to hit the next slide. I do a ton of speaking, and it's a great opportunity to share this with you guys. Hit it one more time. Another picture of me speaking. Hit it again one more time. And these are all the fantastic clients that we get to work with, and there's tons more across the board, from CrossFit gyms to attorneys to bars to Keller Williams to real estate agents to even people who want to start their own business and start their first website. So the reason I tell you this is that this leads us into the talk today, which is facts tell, stories sell. And the reason I told you this story to kick it off is that I could sit here and throw numbers at you about why stories sell and what stories mean to people. But by actually sharing a story, how many do you think you'll actually remember who I am a little bit? Yeah. And a big part of that is actually because you get to humanize, you get to become human, and you get to relate to somebody. I'm sure, has anyone throughout my story can relate to any pieces of that at all? Maybe getting married, doing something, stepping out of your comfort zone, moving to a new place, being kind of scared. So those are all important pieces, and that's what we're going to talk about today. It's just how to create a really powerful story, how to create a unique story, which we all have. I mean, does everyone agree that you have a story of your own? And the easy thing about this is that everyone says, oh, what's your differentiator? And people, I hear it all the time. I work really hard, or really fast, or I'm really customer service focused. And that's all great. But what really makes you unique and different is you, your story. And so when you lead with that, when you can put that and create a really powerful story and then share it everywhere, that's what will change your business. I guarantee it. There's two things that changed my business. Last year, we doubled our revenue. Two things that relate to that is that one, we niched down, started focusing on a specific industry. So does anyone have a specific industry that they focus in on? Yes, sir. What do you do?
Well, right now I'm working with fitness industry to help them with Facebook ads marketing.
Okay, perfect. All right. So great. That's easy, right? Someone else raised their hand back there? Yes, ma'am.
We do water treatment for the oil and gas.
Ah, even better. So very nice. Did you specifically change your business in any way, or did you start off just focusing on the fitness?
Well, I'm a sales guy. So
nice.
The people that I work for, their industry is fitness, so that's why I'm fitness right now.
Perfect.
They want me to close fitness leads, so I'm fitness.
But it goes to show that your business was always, their business is focusing on that, and that's why you're focused.
Right. So I do. So when I do take on clients for closing, they have to have a niche, because if we're just all over the place, I'm not going to get any calls, and if I do, they're going to be horrible.
Yeah, exactly. And did you always start off focusing on the gas and oil business?
So our company started out with a very wide range of products for water treatment, but yes, they have narrowed down for sure on the same exact path that you're talking about.
Yeah.
We've narrowed down a lot. We still do probably talk about more than we should, but we are narrowing it down as we speak.
That's fantastic. Yeah, so, very similar to what you were explaining, like when I first started off, I had a business before I started this agency, and we were general, but we were focusing on social media, and that was back in 2008. And so that was a really specific niche. But coming back into the business world and running my own 4 years ago, when I started a little over actually now, it was I was a generalist, and it was really hard. A lot of people said, hey, what do you specialize in? Especially the way things shift, and mentors of mine were like, you need to niche down, I was like, you guys are crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. I'd be fine just doing this. And I kind of coasted along, and then finally, I think my wife threw a can at my head or something, and it knocked some sense into me. And I woke up and was just like, all right, I need to niche down, and I need to pick an industry. And I happen to love real estate, and I also saw a huge need in that too, where there was a problem and I could solve it. So does everyone have Do you guys have industries that you work with that have problems? Is that easy to say yeah?
Yes.
You say
Is there
that.
one that doesn't?
Yeah, that's true. But can you guys all solve those problems within a specific industry?
Yes.
Yeah? Perfect. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about today how to craft a story, how to differentiate yourselves, how to pick a niche if you don't have one already. And then specifically, we're going to start off with where do you use a story. So where do you guys think you can use a story at? I'm going to make this interactive so I don't have to talk and you guys do all the work.
Social media.
Yeah, social media is definitely one.
On your website.
Website, I'm sorry.
I think honestly, stories are compelling whether it's a conversational one if you know how to tell a good one, or online or via YouTube. It's more contingent on the storyteller.
Absolutely. Can you hit the next slide? Because I think you looked at it. It says everywhere. So yeah, it is pretty much everywhere. Here, I'll give you $10 after we're done. So great places to do stories though would be specific. You said social media, it could be on your website, it could be in person. One of the best ways to kind of explain this is I was talking with a woman who actually was a real estate agent, and about a year ago we sat down for coffee, and she said, "Brandon, I'm really having a hard time getting business, and I've been going to this networking group, and I get up and I say the same thing, and there's a bunch of other realtors that are out there, and no one ever comes up to me. There's specific people that I know I can help, but they don't come up to me, and then when I come up to them, they kind of brush me off. So I'm just frustrated. I don't know what to do." I said, "All right, well, let's back up a second." I said, "Tell me more about yourself." And so she started explaining that she's been through a divorce in the last few years. She has a couple old adult children, not old children, but adult children. And those children are now gone. They sold their house that they had with their kids, and she downsized. And she runs actually a networking group or support group for divorcees. So I said, "Well, right there, don't you want to work with divorcees?" She's like, "Yeah, absolutely." I said, "Well, there you go. You work with divorcees and helping them sell their properties, and you can also help their kids." And so we worked on her pitch a little bit, and she went that night to that same networking group, gave her spiel in front of everybody, and sure enough, the divorce attorney that she's been looking to talk to forever came up to her afterwards and said, "Hey, let's grab some coffee and talk some more. I think we can definitely do some business." So right there, she shared her story a little bit. She opened up. She was very specific in what she did, and opportunities presented itself. So you can do it in person. You can do it at networking events. Social media is a great platform to do it. YouTube. Anyone have a YouTube channel? Awesome. What do you talk about in your YouTube channel?
I talk about WordPress tips, tricks.
Okay, wonderful. So, sharing your story, you have an overall general story, right? Like you have your story, but beyond just your story, and this also goes with your clients. Like if you're working with clients and creating websites for your clients, you need to put their story into that website as well. You need to share that. So, part of this is that you have a story, but inside your story, you have other stories that you can share. So think about those stories that you can present it at. So where you can actually put this is everywhere. You can put social media, email. Anyone still use email? Good. You should if you haven't. If you're not, email is not dead and is not going anywhere anytime soon. It's a fantastic channel, and it's actually one of the most intimate channels that we have right now besides face-to-face when it comes to marketing. Just because if people are willing to give you their information and let you in their inbox, then you're actually doing pretty good. So you have a great opportunity there. So definitely use emails. So networking, we talked about sales calls. Anyone share your story when you're in a sales call with somebody?
Yes.
Yeah. How does that work?
Perfect.
It's absolutely one of the most powerful things you can do. You don't want to spend too much time talking. This comes into more of your presentation point. After you go through your sales call and you start finding out all the information and you're at that point where you're presenting, sharing your story can really create, it actually will differentiate you from other people, but also help you close that deal. So really being able to work that in there. Presentations in general, just like if you're doing a presentation up here or over on a webinar of any sort, videos are great. anyone you have a YouTube channel, but does anyone actually just do videos in general, whether it's on social media a little bit? Everybody should start doing it. You guys have no excuse. Everyone have a smartphone?
Yes.
Anyone have a flip phone here?
Oh my.
I'm curious, because if they do, I want to talk to them. But everyone has smartphones, so no one has really an excuse, because smartphones provide an opportunity for all of us to create videos. And the key to really good video actually isn't so much the video quality as it is the audio quality. So you can actually buy a lapel mic like this that goes into a smartphone for like $10 on Amazon, and you get really good quality on there. So videos are extremely powerful. You can share your story. You can share multiple stories about things that are going on. Vlogs, which are video blogs for anybody who doesn't know, are becoming more and more popular. It's actually what most millennials watch nowadays than anything else. And that's a huge market. If you guys haven't started thinking about working with millennials, those are definitely the people that are coming up in the world. So keep that in mind. Next slide, please. Okay. So we talked about this. What stories do I share? So we talked about the general overall story, just your story. And let me tell you, it takes time to develop a really good story. So there are some key points into it. One, there has to be some emotion into it. And then you always want to start with your background. So you can go as far back as you want to, like I did here when I went back to when I think I was like 6 or 7 in that picture. I might have been younger, but I went back that far. Or you can go back to, early stages. But getting in your background is really important to pull in people in there. You never know where you can capture. But I always find that starting off in your childhood helps a lot, because how you're brought up can really go a long way. And so a lot of times when I usually have a little bit more time to share my story, I will even go back into my early days of when I actually started my first real business, which was shoveling snow in Chicago during the winter, which was partly because my dad wouldn't give me money for Jordans that I wanted. And he said, if you want to do it, you're going to learn how to make some money today. And he gave me an idea to go out there and shovel snow. And that was actually my first introduction into entrepreneurship. And so, but see, there's these little stories. And personally, my background too, I got a lot of stuff in my background. I got a very rich history. But all these are little stories that you can share. And so you can do a condensed size of it, and then you can expand on them. And then everything is an opportunity too. Did anyone ever grow up with like a disability or something, or some sort of something that kind of, in some eyes would say it would be crippling or be a bad thing, but you've turned it into a great opportunity now? Anyone go through something like that? No? Okay. I personally, I grew up, I had a learning disability. I was raised when I was in 4th grade. They diagnosed me with reading comprehension, and so I had a really hard time. They had to put me in special classes. I thought I was stupid, honestly. Like growing up, that's kind of how I felt when they put me in these special classes. But I learned to overcome it. And later on, when I was 19, they actually diagnosed me with ADHD, which is what they said that probably led me to my reading comprehension learning disability. And usually those two kind of go together. So those were things that I had to overcome. And there's a lot of other crap too I can share, but we don't have time for my full life story. But these, again, that is a story that I can pull in. And if you guys have things like that, you can pull in. Again, it just relates a lot with people. So let's keep going. Testimonials. So this is a story about you, not told by you. So does anyone have testimonials? Great. Anyone have video testimonials? Everyone should get video testimonials. If anything we're going to walk away with today is that videos are powerful, and you should have stories told in videos. Video testimonials, just because anyone can write a testimonial. Like, you could write your own testimonial and no one would know the difference. So having that video of actually having somebody talk about it, and literally what I do with some clients is that I'll just corner them wherever we are, like, hey, you might give me 30 seconds of your time, and sometimes they're a little, caught off guard, but I grab my phone, I just ask them a few questions, and then I do a little editing, and wham, bam, we got a video testimony. It's that easy. It's not really that hard. So definitely use testimonials. Personal story, your personal story. We talked about that enough. Let's jump onto, okay. So let's talk about a little bit more about a story that sells. Okay, let's talk about, does anyone have an idea? I know we're talking about this, about a niche, and we have a couple people who have a niche, but anyone thinking about a niche that they would really like to focus in on? So I can use it as a test dummy right now. Yes, sir.
The mortgage industry.
Okay, mortgage industry. Awesome. What do you do?
I'm a web designer and developer. Yeah.
Okay. So have you done stuff with mortgage?
I just left my employer. Cornerstone Home Lending.
Okay.
It's a huge nationwide company. I was in charge of managing and maintaining and developing websites for them nationwide for all the loan officers and all that, and corporate sites and all that. And the need is tremendous, like you said.
Yeah.
The need of for lenders, mortgage lenders.
So that's perfect.
So it's a great need.
Yeah. And your story too. I mean, like right there, you got a huge amount of credibility that you've done this for. So tell me this, right? Let's just expand a little bit on this story. So your background, you came from working this. How long did you work at that company for?
For about 4 years, 4.5 years.
4.5 years.
Yeah.
And so you created websites for mortgage loan officers, correct?
Right.
When you did that, did that impact the business in any way? Did you?
So the websites that we create as part of the web team, the marketing team and Cornerstone, they're basic HTML websites.
Sure.
So when I joined the company 4 years ago, they had static HTML non-responsive websites. So over time, well, actually pretty much right away, we started switching to a responsive template. But I utilize WordPress for a couple of websites, corporate sites, for example, for a marketing catalog.
Okay.
The people before me tried to implement WordPress or a marketing catalog tool for about 2 years without being successful. I came knowing WordPress, obviously, implemented a WordPress system that anybody can access the marketing tool. So everybody posted, like all the department posted, all flyers, business cards, all marketing materials into this portfolio marketing catalog, and it was very successful.
Fantastic. So there you go. Your story's right there. It's written. So you see, though, what was your name again?
Omar.
So Omar's story right here is extremely powerful. He can go back a little bit even further in your history. So how you're telling me to move this way?
Yeah, you're like totally off the camera.
Yeah.
There you are.
It's usually with cameramen, I keep them on their, or camera people, I keep them on their toes.
Yeah,
all the time.
Yeah.
I explain that I'm ADHD, so I like to move when I'm talking. I can't sit still. Yeah.
You can move just within a
like this part. Yeah. Like right here. Just keep walking back and forth. Yes, right here. So Omar's story though goes back. So even to go back further, before you worked for that company, what did you do before that?
Well, I was helping out small businesses with their website presence and marketing, same with social media. I was exactly what you just mentioned, like being a tautologist, like doing everything at once.
Perfect.
You know, so I was trying to do all of it, but I quickly realized that was not going to work, and it's just too hard.
Yeah.
And so I was helping. I started web design over 10 years ago.
Okay.
And started on my own and went back to school and all that. But,
okay. Yeah. So that's great. So a couple things too is that when you tell a story, if you can, try to inject some humor into it. Humor always gets people's attention. It helps lighten up the mood. And it really just keeps them engaged as well. So like Omar could go back to I went back 10 years. I started developing websites when you still had to chisel things into the wall and figure out how it worked. I'm glad one person laughed. Not all my jokes go over as well as I like them to. So But you might want to work on that one. But start off, put a little joke into there, toy around with people. Well, not toy around, but, poke fun at yourself. And you create that story, say, I went back 10 years working with small businesses, and then I got the opportunity to work with this company, creating this. I came in there, share exactly what you said, and now I'm back on my own, and I want to work and help. My mission is to help mortgage loan officers everywhere, not just the company that I was working for, but everywhere, to help them create a better web presence that will ultimately help them grow their business. And I'm going to do that by doing this. And so, and I was explaining this a little bit earlier, but the key points of a good story is the background, injecting the problem where people normally have, how you solve that, and then specifically who you're working with at the very end. At the very end, you always plug in there, I'm helping these people do this. And so for some people, it's obvious because you're saying I'm working in a specific industry, but just being blatant with them, you might even get very specific. So if you work within an industry, let's say the mortgage industry, but you only want to work with the mortgage brokers, not necessarily the mortgage loan officers, then you would specify that in there as well. So, so you got your story right there. You go out there and you start sharing it with people, and you got a lot of, I'm sure you have a lot of internal stories too about different things and how great stories to tell is problems that occur. So anyone ever run into a problem that that occurred during the project or something like that? Sure, everybody. Those are fantastic stories to tell. Main reason why is that because those stories, people are going to be like, they might be thinking about that in the back of their head, or they might have not thought about that and be like, oh man, what if that did happen? Now I feel comfortable because Omar can help me out, because in case the website goes down, he's there to help me get it back up. And so those are stories that you can definitely share and expand on. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, so never mind. I'm not going to go there. Let's go back a little bit. Okay. So, how much time do we have?
Usually about 45 minutes, so 30 minutes. 30 minutes.
Okay. So, one thing that I did not do in the beginning of this, does anyone have any specific questions that they want to make sure they get accomplished during the story while we're talking about creating stories? Yes, ma'am.
How long, let's say if you're doing a video or even writing, how long should the story be? Like I'm trying to base it on how long your story was here with us today in live. Is the length of the story pretty much the same regardless of whether you're speaking via video or writing it?
No. So your story, it just depends on the situation. Like in a presentation like this, because I'm confined to 45 minutes, not that it's a bad thing, but it's 45 minutes and I want to make sure I get some of the value through, I had to condense the story down a little bit. If I really told the full story, it'd probably take almost the whole 45 minutes. But from a video standpoint, I think one of the best advice I ever got, and I think this holds true to anything, is that if you sell a higher ticket item, the higher the price tag on what you sell, the longer the story should be. Yeah, because, yes, sir.
Also, it just depends on too how long people watch the videos for. If you have like a YouTube channel and you go into your insights and you see your insights of people only watching your videos for 3 minutes or less or something like that, then having a 4-minute story is not going to really.
Yes and no. So there's some truth behind that, but there also you have to understand that like you don't get to see the full story behind that. Meaning that you don't know if you just brought in the wrong audience who started watching your video. I did a lot, and I do a lot with analytics, and what we always say about analytics and anything that you do is that you do not judge the average of anything because it's so skewed. Like one person can come in and watch the full minute or the full 20-minute video, and then another person come in and watch 30 seconds, and then average is going to be right in the middle. And so that's the thing. So I wouldn't really base it off of the insight so much, because you want to make sure you're getting the right audience to watch it, and if you don't, then sometimes you don't have control over that. But people are going to watch, like I have videos on my YouTube channel that are over an hour long. They're like literally webinars recorded that I put up there, and those are some of the highest views that I have. I have I have one video on my YouTube channel that has about 12,000 views, and that's over 30 minutes long. But it's a tutorial, so people are going to sit and watch that whole thing because they want to get that information. But from a story standpoint, I hate to say you have to pick a specific time. You just have to gauge it off of your audience. Is really what it comes down to. There's no problem with throwing up your story. I have a podcast, which I'll show you guys in a second what it is, but I have recorded my story on there, and it's not one of the best shows, but it's up there, and people listen to it and they understand and kind of relate. So I don't think there's a specific right answer to your question, but you have to just kind of gauge it to who you're talking to and what the situation is. Yes, Matt.
Just based on what you said and how you responded,
Yeah.
It sounds like the length of the video is determined by the medium, the intent, and then the audience.
Correct.
Those are kind of three things you touched on.
Correct.
I kind of just like to repeat things back to make sure I heard you correctly.
Absolutely. Thank you for putting it like that. That was very elegant. I need to hire you because that's not how I But and also to that point and to your point is like it depends like where the medium is. Like if you're doing it on Instagram you have 60 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So you have no choice but to make it 60 seconds. But if you want to make it longer, you can put it up on IGTV, Instagram TV. You can put it up at 10 minutes on there. So, and then YouTube, there's no restraints on how long the video is. Podcasts, you can record it as long as you want. If you create your story, write it in an email. You don't want to have a 30,000 word email go out because I highly doubt anyone would ever read that. So again, it just depends on the situation and where you are. LinkedIn is another place. Like, does anyone share their story on LinkedIn? On their summary? Yeah. So that's one of the best places, like, especially if you want to share it. I would say that the summary section is on LinkedIn is probably one of the best places just to write it. You can also record your story in a YouTube video and link it in your summary or on your LinkedIn profile. So that's another way of just kind of most people like watching videos now anyways. They don't like reading, unfortunately. But you can throw that up there and kind of combine the two. So you can have, because LinkedIn, you only have about, I think it's about, give or take, like 300 and some words or 3,000. I forgot. There's a big difference, but you're constrained to how much you can share on there. So again, you can put an abbreviated version on there. And it's basically about 5 paragraphs worth that you can put on there, and then you can link them back to your video story. So, hope that kind of answers some of your question there. Anyone else have a specific question? No? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So, I work in the realm of nonprofits, and one of the things that I've seen is that sometimes to serve the people you want to serve, stories can be exploited of them. So how do you honor someone else's story? Because for the nonprofit world, like other people's stories, they're how we generate income for people to donate.
Absolutely.
But how do you do that in a way that honors the person and doesn't become exploitative?
Well, you have to. I always say, like, I've done that before, actually, for nonprofits. I've raised like $50,000 for a grant for them, and sharing stories. And you just have to get the buy-in of the person who's sharing the story, as long as they're okay with it. Also, you don't always have to share their full name, so that could also be part of it too. If you just put their first name, that can kind of protect them as well. But those stories, especially for nonprofits, those are so emotionally driven that it helps so much with raising funds. I mean, that's really, and if you want to think about it in that terms, like think of yourself as almost a nonprofit and just sharing these stories about things that come up or personal things that you've overcome or anything really, or clients of yours. I've had clients who've cried to me because they were in such a bad place, and we were able to help them out of a really bad situation. And those are some of the best stories. They were in a really tough place, and we were able to help them and grow. And that's why we do what we do, right? Like, we're here to help people, and so we might as well share those stories with you. All right. Any other questions? Okay, so
What
I
is
got,
Prince doing?
I'm glad someone asked.
I actually thought that was him in his younger days.
So, you thought it was me in my younger days?
I'm joking.
I was like, man.
That doesn't even look like you.
I know. I was like, I don't know if to take that as an insult or a compliment, but I'll take it either way. So this is a great story just from a couple different perspectives, but I'll tell you first before we get into why. So back in 1981, Prince was asked by Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones to open up for their tour. And they were actually at the LA Coliseum. And Prince was a little reluctant, but he came out for the first show and came out as Prince does, dressed like this. And he started playing his music and basically got booed off the stage. And he left and was extremely upset. Took a flight right back to Minnesota. And Mick called him up and was like, apologized profusely, promised it would never happen again, and asked him to come back for the next show. So against his better judgment, Prince decided to come back, came out dressed as Prince does, played the full 25-minute set, and still the entire crowd booed him, disliked it, did not give him a warm welcome. And so, but at that point, Prince vowed to himself that he would never, ever open up a show for anyone ever again. Main reason why is that that's not his audience. And so if it's not his audience and they don't like his music, then why play for him? And so I share this for two reasons. One, it's a great story. Actually, three reasons. Two, I love Prince and he's awesome. And then three, it just goes to show that if you really want to get people to captivated and to buy into what you're doing, you have to have the right audience. You have to know who you're going after. And you have to be able to share that story in front of them over and over again. Some of the best people, like, and this is part of the reason for the stories too, and I think I've nailed this a little bit in the beginning, but the story, your story presents to you is a problem that you can relate to somebody else, that you're that, in a sense. And, like, think about Michael Jordan. And I like, because again, I'm a Michael Jordan fan. LeBron is good, and he's a great player. In my opinion, not the greatest player to ever play the game. And there's a difference between him and Michael. The reason being, Michael has a backstory where he actually, what happened to him? He got cut off the basketball team. He got cut from the JV basketball team. Who else gets cut from JV basketball teams? Everybody. Who walks around and dubs themselves the king? King James. Is that very relatable? Not really. So you can see that the true great people create stories and have stories that relate to you. Steve Harvey is another one that I really enjoy. He was living out of his car for 3 years. Who lives out of the car for 3 years? Lots. Well, not lots of people, but average Joes. Like, people go through these situations. There's Jim Carrey was another story too. You guys ever heard about Jim Carrey's story where he was broke and wanted to become an aspiring actor and wrote himself a check for $10 million for 5 years from where he was, and then he got the role, I think it was Dumb and Dumber or something like that, and he got paid $10 million. And so these are stories that people can relate to. And so not say that, we're necessarily, all of us are at the end part of those stories, but we still have those beginning parts, and we also have come a long ways from where we started. So you never know what your story can do and how it can impact people. So it's important that you share it, develop it, nurture it, like anything else. It's never going to be perfect, but you got to work on it, and you got to start telling people. So that's the best thing you could possibly do. Stories are very, very impactful, and it can change people's lives. So this was Facts Tell, Stories Sell, and I'm going to share just a little bit, if you don't mind hitting the slide one more time. So first of all, thank you for having me. Thank you all for coming too. I appreciate you guys. I'm going to stick around here till the end, and I'm also in town from Austin, so I'm actually staying the night, so I'll be around tomorrow if anyone wants to talk. You hit the slide one more time. I can share these slides with you.
Yep. Hold on a minute.
Okay, so I have a podcast. It's called The Brandon Lewin Show. It is mainly targeted towards real estate agents and brokers. But again, a lot of what I talk about is this, and it can relate to really any business if you just listen to it and you can apply it. So I share a ton of information. I bring on other successful people, and also I kind of go against the grain. I don't bring on like huge successful people. I have some of those, but I also have some people that are just starting off and them telling their stories and where they're at and how they got started. I think all that we can learn from people like that as well. So you can do that, and then in the slides, so you could, if you want to take a picture, this is some of the places you can follow me. This is my number if you want to text me. This is my Instagram if you want to send me a DM, or as the kids like to say, slide in the DM. If you don't know what that means, then you should Google it. But yeah, these are all the places you can contact me, and I really appreciate you guys. Before we go, though, if you don't mind, I'd love to grab a